Pauppukkeewis by Anonymous. A man of large stature and great activity of mind and body found himself standing alone on a prairie. He thought to himself, "How came I here? Are there no beings on this earth but myself? I must travel and see, I must walk till I find the abodes of men." So as soon as his mind was made up he set out, he knew not whither, in search of habitations. No obstacles diverted him from his purpose. Prairies, rivers, woods, and storms did not daunt his courage or turn him back. After traveling a long time he came to a wood in which he saw decayed stumps of trees, as if they had been cut in ancient times, but he found no other traces of men. Pursuing his journey, he found more recent marks of the same kind, and later on he came to fresh traces of human beings, first their footsteps, and then the wood they had cut lying in heaps. Continuing on, he emerged towards dusk from the forest, and beheld at a distance a large village of high lodges, standing on rising ground. He said to himself, "PG-16, I will arrive there at a run." Off he started with all his speed, and on coming to the first lodge he jumped over it. Those within saw something pass over the top, and then they heard a thump on the ground. "What is that?" they all said. One came out to see, and, finding a stranger, invited him in. He found himself in the presence of an old chief and several men who were seated in the lodge. Meat was set before him, after which the chief asked him where he was going and what his name was. He answered he was in search of adventures, and that his name was Pauppukkeewis, grasshopper. The eyes of all were fixed upon him. "Pauppukkeewis," said one to another, and the laugh went round. Pauppukkeewis made but a short stay in the village. He was not easy there. The place gave him no opportunity to display his powers. "I will be off," he said, and taking with him a young man who had formed a strong attachment for him, and who might serve him as a Meshinowa official who bears the pipe, he set out once more on his travels. The two travelled together, and when the young man was fatigued with walking, Pauppukkeewis would show him a few tricks, such as leaping over trees, and turning round on one leg till he made the dust fly in a cloud around him. In this manner he very much amused his companion, though at times his performance somewhat alarmed him. PG-17, one day they came to a large village, where they were well received. The people told them that there were a number of manitos who lived some distance away, and who killed all who came to their lodge. The people had made many attempts to extirpate these manitos, but the war parties that went out for this purpose were always unsuccessful. "I will go and see them," said Pauppukkeewis. The chief of the village warned him of the danger he would run, but finding him resolved, said, "Well, if you will go, since you are my guest, I will send 20 warriors with you." Pauppukkeewis thanked him for this. 20 young men offered themselves for the expedition. They went forward and in a short time descried the lodge of the manitos. Pauppukkeewis placed his friend and the warriors near him so that they might see all that passed, and then he went alone into the lodge. When he entered, he found 5 horrible-looking manitos eating. These were the father and 4 sons. Their appearance was hideous. Their eyes were set low in their heads as if the manitos were half-starved. They offered Pauppukkeewis part of their meat, but he refused it. "What have you come for?" asked the old one. "Nothing," answered Pauppukkeewis. At this they all stared at him. "Do you not wish to wrestle?" they all asked. "Yes," replied he. A hideous smile passed over their faces. "You go," said the others to their eldest brother. PG-18 Pauppukkeewis and his antagonist were soon clinched in each other's arms. He knew the manito's object. They wanted his flesh, but he was prepared for them. "Ho ho," they cried, and the dust and dry leaves flew about the wrestlers as if driven by a strong wind. The manito was strong, but Pauppukkeewis soon found he could master him. He tripped him up and threw him with a giant's force head foremost on a stone, and he fell insensible. The brothers stepped up in quick succession, but Pauppukkeewis put his tricks in full play, and soon all the 4 lay bleeding on the ground. The old manito got frightened and ran for his life. Pauppukkeewis pursued him for sport. Sometimes he was before him, sometimes over his head. Now he would give him a kick, now a push, now a trip, till the manito was quite exhausted. Meanwhile Pauppukkeewis' friend and the warriors came up, crying, "Ha ha, ha ha, Pauppukkeewis is driving him before him." At length Pauppukkeewis threw the manito to the ground with such force that he lay senseless, and the warriors, carrying him off, laid him with the bodies of his sons, and set fire to the whole, consuming them to ashes. Around the lodge Pauppukkeewis and his friends saw a large number of bones, the remains of the warriors whom the manitos had slain. Taking 3 arrows, Pauppukkeewis called upon the great PG-19 spirit, and then, shooting an arrow in the air, he cried, "You who are lying down, rise up, or you will be hit." The bones at these words all collected in one place. Again Pauppukkeewis shot another arrow into the air, crying, "You who are lying down, rise up, or you will be hit," and each bone drew towards its fellow. Then he shot a third arrow, crying, "You who are lying down, rise up, or you will be hit," and the bones immediately came together, flesh came over them, and the warriors, whose remains they were, stood before Pauppukkeewis alive and well. He led them to the chief of the village, who had been his friend, and gave them up to him. Soon after, the chief with his counselors came to him, saying, "Who is more worthy to rule than you? You alone can defend us." Pauppukkeewis thanked the chief, but told him he must set out again in search of further adventures. The chief and the counselors pressed him to remain, but he was resolved to leave them, and so he told the chief to make his friend ruler while he himself went on his travels. "I will come again," said he, "sometime and see you." "Ho, ho, ho," they all cried, "come back again and see us." He promised that he would, and set out alone. PG-20 After travelling for some time, he came to a large lake, and on looking about he saw an enormous otter on an island. He thought to himself, "His skin will make me a fine pouch," and drawing near he drove an arrow into the otter's side. He waded into the lake, and with some difficulty dragged the carcass ashore. He took out the entrails, but even then the carcass was so heavy that it was as much as he could do to drag it up a hill overlooking the lake. As soon as he got it into the sunshine, where it was warm, he skinned the otter and threw the carcass away, for he said to himself, "The war eagle will come, and then I shall have a chance to get his skin and his feathers to put on my head." Very soon he heard a noise in the air, but he could see nothing. At length a large eagle dropped, as if from the sky, onto the otter's carcass. Pauppukkeewis drew his bow and sent an arrow through the bird's body. The eagle made a dying effort and lifted the carcass up several feet, but it could not disengage its claws, and the weight soon brought the bird down again. Then Pauppukkeewis skinned the bird, crowned his head with its feathers, and set out again on his journey. After walking a while he came to a lake, the water of which came right up to the trees on its banks. He soon saw that the lake had been made by beavers. He took his station at a certain spot to see whether any of the beavers would show PG-21 themselves. Soon he saw the head of one peeping out of the water to see who the stranger was. "My friend," said Pauppukkeewis, "could you not turn me into a beaver like yourself?" "I do not know," replied the beaver. "I will go and ask the others." Soon all the beavers showed their heads above the water, and looked to see if Pauppukkeewis was armed, but he had left his bow and arrows in a hollow tree a short distance off. When they were satisfied, they all came near. "Can you not, with all your united power," said he, "turn me into a beaver? I wish to live among you." "Yes," answered the chief, "lie down," and Pauppukkeewis soon found himself changed into one of them. "You must make me large," said he, "larger than any of you." "Yes, yes," said they, "by and by when we get into the lodge it shall be done." They all dived into the lake, and Pauppukkeewis, passing large heaps of limbs of trees and logs at the bottom, asked the use of them. The beavers answered, "They are our winter provisions." When they all got into the lodge their number was about 100. The lodge was large and warm. "Now we will make you large," said they, exerting all their power. "Will that do?" PG-22, "Yes," he answered, for he found he was 10 times the size of the largest. "You need not go out," said they. "We will bring your food into the lodge and you shall be our chief." "Very well," answered Pauppukkeewis. He thought, "I will stay here and grow fat at their expense." But very soon a beaver came into the lodge out of breath, crying, "We are attacked by Indians." All huddled together in great fear. The water began to lower, for the hunters had broken down the dam, and soon the beavers heard them on the roof of the lodge, breaking it in. Out jumped all the beavers and so escaped. Pauppukkeewis tried to follow them, but alas, they had made him so large that he could not creep out at the hole. He called to them to come back, but none answered. He worried himself so much in trying to escape that he looked like a bladder. He could not change himself into a man again, though he heard and understood all the hunters said. One of them put his head in at the top of the lodge. "Tayo," cried he, "tut tayo me shaumik. King of the beavers is in." Then they all got at Pauppukkeewis and battered in his skull with their clubs. After that 7 or 8 of them placed his body on poles and carried him home. As he went he reflected, "What will become of me? My ghost or shadow will not die after they get me to their lodges." PG-23. When the party arrived home, they sent out invitations to a grand feast. The women took Pauppukkeewis and laid him in the snow to skin him, but as soon as his flesh got cold, his jibai or spirit fled. Pauppukkeewis found himself standing on a prairie, having assumed his mortal shape. After walking a short distance, he saw a herd of elks feeding. He admired the apparent ease and enjoyment of their life, and thought there could be nothing more pleasant than to have the liberty of running about and feeding on the prairies. He asked them if they could not change him into an elk. Yes, they answered after a pause. Get down on your hands and feet. He did so and soon found himself an elk. I want big horns and big feet, said he. I wish to be very large. Yes, yes, they said. There, exerting all their power, are you big enough? Yes, he answered, for he saw he was very large. They spent a good time in playing and running. Being rather cold one day, he went into a thick wood for shelter, and was followed by most of the herd. They had not been there long before some elks from behind passed them like a strong wind. All took the alarm, and off they ran, Pauppukkeewis with the rest. Keep out on the plains, said they, but he found it was too late to do so, for they had already got entangled in the thick woods. He soon smelt the PG-24 hunters, who were closely following his trail, for they had left all the others to follow him. He jumped furiously and broke down young trees in his flight, but it only served to retard his progress. He soon felt an arrow in his side. He jumped over trees in his agony, but the arrows clattered thicker and thicker about him, and at last one entered his heart. He fell to the ground and heard the whoop of triumph given by the warriors. On coming up, they looked at the carcass with astonishment, and with their hands up to their mouths exclaimed, "Tayo, Tayo!" There were about 60 in the party, who had come out on a special hunt, for one of their number had, the day before, observed Pauppukkeewis' large tracks in the sand. They skinned him, and as his flesh got cold, his jibai took its flight, and once more he found himself in human shape. His passion for adventure was not yet cooled. On coming to a large lake, the shore of which was sandy, he saw a large flock of brant, and speaking to them, he asked them to turn him into a brant. "Very well," said they. "But I want to be very large," said he. "Very well," replied the brant, and he soon found himself one of them of prodigious size, all the others looking on at him in amazement. "You must fly as leader," they said. "No," replied Pauppukkeewis, "I will fly behind." "Very well," said they. "One thing we have PG-25 to say to you. You must be careful in flying not to look down, for if you do something may happen to you." "Be it so," said he, and soon the flock rose up in the air, for they were bound for the north. They flew very fast with Pauppukkeewis behind. One day, while going with a strong wind, and as swift as their wings would flap, while they passed over a large village, the Indians below raised a great shout, for they were amazed at the enormous size of Pauppukkeewis. They made such a noise that Pauppukkeewis forgot what had been told him about not looking down. He was flying as swift as an arrow, and as soon as he brought his neck in and stretched it down to look at the shouters, his tail was caught by the wind, and he was blown over and over. He tried to right himself, but without success. Down he went from an immense height, turning over and over. He lost his senses, and when he recovered them, he found himself jammed in a cleft in a hollow tree. To get backward or forward was impossible, and there he remained until his brant life was ended by starvation. Then his jibai again left the carcass, and once more he found himself in human shape. Travelling was still his passion, and one day he came to a lodge, in which were 2 old men whose heads were white from age. They treated him well, and he told them he was going back to his village to see his friends and people. The old men said they would aid him, and pointed out the way they PG-26 said he should go, but they were deceivers. After walking all day, he came to a lodge very like the first, and looking in he found 2 old men with white heads. It was in fact the very same lodge, and he had been walking in a circle. The old men did not undeceive him, but pretended to be strangers, and said in a kind voice, "We will show you the way." After walking the 3rd day, and coming back to the same place, he discovered their trickery, for he had cut a notch in the doorpost. "Who are you," said he to them, "to treat me so?" And he gave one a kick and the other a slap that killed them. Their blood flew against the rocks near their lodge, and that is the reason there are red streaks in them to this day. Then Pauppukkeewis burned their lodge. He continued his journey, not knowing exactly which way to go. At last he came to a big lake. He ascended the highest hill to try and see the opposite shore, but he could not, so he made a canoe and took a sail on the water. On looking down, he saw that the bottom of the lake was covered with dark fish, of which he caught some. This made him wish to return to his village and bring his people to live near this lake. He sailed on, and towards evening came to an island where he stopped and ate the fish. Next day he returned to the mainland, and while wandering along the shore, he encountered a more powerful manito than himself, named PG-27 Manabajo. Pauppukkeewis thought it best, after playing him a trick, to keep out of his way. He again thought of returning to his village, and transforming himself into a partridge took his flight towards it. In a short time he reached it, and his return was welcomed with feasting and songs. He told them of the lake and of the fish, and telling them that it would be easier for them to live there, persuaded them all to remove. He immediately began to lead them by short journeys, and all things turned out as he had said. While the people lived there, a messenger came to Pauppukkeewis in the shape of a bear, and said that the bear chief wished to see him at once at his village. Pauppukkeewis was ready in an instant, and getting on the messenger's back was carried away. Towards evening they ascended a high mountain, and came to a cave in which the bear chief lived. He was a very large creature, and he made Pauppukkeewis welcome, inviting him into his lodge. As soon as propriety allowed, he spoke, and said that he had sent for him because he had heard he was the chief who was leading a large party towards his hunting grounds. "You must know," said he, "that you have no right there, and I wish you to leave the country with your party, or else we must fight." "Very well," replied Pauppukkeewis, "so be it." He did not wish to do anything without consulting his people, and he saw that the bear chief was raising a war party, so he said he would go back that PG-28 night. The bear king told him he might do as he wished, and that one of the bears was at his command, so Pauppukkeewis, jumping on its back, rode home. Then he assembled the village, and told the young men to kill the bear, make ready a feast, and hang the head outside the village, for he knew the bear spies would soon see it and carry the news to their chief. Next morning Pauppukkeewis got all his young warriors ready for the fight. After waiting one day, the bear war party came in sight, making a tremendous noise. The bear chief advanced, and said that he did not wish to shed the blood of the young warriors, but if Pauppukkeewis would consent they too would run a race, and the winner should kill the losing chief, and all the loser's followers should be the slaves of the other. Pauppukkeewis agreed, and they ran before all the warriors. He was victor, but not to terminate the race too quickly, he gave the bear chief some specimens of his skill, forming eddies and whirlwinds with the sand as he twisted and turned about. As the bear chief came to the post, Pauppukkeewis drove an arrow through him. Having done this, he told his young men to take the bears and tie one at the door of each lodge, that they might remain in future as slaves. After seeing that all was quiet and prosperous in the village, Pauppukkeewis felt his desire for adventure returning, so he took an affectionate leave of his friends and people, and started off again. After wandering a long time, he came to the lodge of PG-29 Manabajo, who was absent. Pauppukkeewis thought he would play him a trick, so he turned everything in the lodge upside down and killed his chickens. Now Manabajo calls all the fowl of the air his chickens, and among the number was a raven, the meanest of birds, and him Pauppukkeewis killed and hung up by the neck to insult Manabajo. He then went on till he came to a very high point of rocks running out into the lake, from the top of which he could see the country as far as eye could reach. While he sat there, Manabajo's mountain chickens flew round and passed him in great numbers. So out of spite, he shot many of them, for his arrows were sure and the birds many, and he amused himself by throwing the birds down the precipice. At length a wary bird called out, "Pauppukkeewis is killing us, go and tell our father." Away flew some of them, and Manabajo soon made his appearance on the plain below. Pauppukkeewis slipped down the other side of the mountain. Manabajo cried from the top, "The earth is not so large, but I can get up to you." Off Pauppukkeewis ran, and Manabajo after him. He ran over hills and prairies with all his speed, but his pursuer was still hard after him. Then he thought of a shift. He stopped and climbed a large pine tree, stripped it of all its green foliage, and threw it to the winds. Then he ran on. When Manabajo reached the tree, it called out to him, "PG-30, great Manabajo, give me my life again. Pauppukkeewis has killed me." "I will do so," said Manabajo, and it took him some time to gather the scattered foliage. Then he resumed the chase. Pauppukkeewis repeated the same trick with the hemlock, and with other trees, for Manabajo would always stop to restore anything that called upon him to give it life again. By this means Pauppukkeewis kept ahead, but still Manabajo was overtaking him when Pauppukkeewis saw an elk. He asked it to take him on its back, and this the animal did, and for a time he made great progress. Still Manabajo was in sight. Pauppukkeewis dismounted, and coming to a large sandstone rock, he broke it in pieces and scattered the grains. Manabajo was so close upon him at this place that he had almost caught him, but the foundation of the rock cried out, "Hey, Nimisho, Pauppukkeewis has spoiled me. Will you not restore me to life?" "Yes," replied Manabajo, and he restored the rock to its previous shape. He then pushed on in pursuit of Pauppukkeewis, and had got so near as to put out his arm to seize him, when Pauppukkeewis dodged him, and raised such a dust and commotion by whirlwinds as to make the trees break, and the sand and leaves dance in the air. Again and again Manabajo's hand was put out to catch him, but he dodged him at every turn, and at last, making a great dust, he dashed into a hollow tree which had been blown down, and changing himself PG-31 into a snake, crept out at its roots. Well that he did, for at the moment Manabajo, who is Ojibao-Jimon, a species of lightning, struck the tree with all his power and shivered it to fragments. Pauppukkeewis again took human shape, and again Manabajo, pursuing him, pressed him hard. At a distance Pauppukkeewis saw a very high rock jutting out into a lake, and he ran for the foot of the precipice, which was abrupt and elevated. As he came near, the manito of the rock opened his door and told him to come in. No sooner was the door closed than Manabajo knocked at it. "Open," he cried in a loud voice. The manito was afraid of him, but said to his guest, "Since I have sheltered you, I would sooner die with you than open the door." "Open," Manabajo cried again. The manito was silent. Manabajo made no attempt to force the door open. He waited a few moments. "Very well," said he, "I give you till night to live." The manito trembled, for he knew that when the hour came he would be shut up under the earth. Night came, the clouds hung low and black, and every moment the forked lightning flashed from them. The black clouds advanced slowly and threw their dark shadows afar, and behind was heard the rumbling noise of the coming thunder. When the clouds were gathered over the rock, the thunder's PG-32 roared, the lightning flashed, the ground shook, and the solid rock split, tottered, and fell. Under the ruins lay crushed the mortal bodies of Pauppukkeewis and the manito. It was only then that Pauppukkeewis found that he was really dead. He had been killed before in the shapes of different animals, but now his body in human shape was crushed. Manabajo came and took his jibai or spirit. "You," said he to Pauppukkeewis, "shall not be again permitted to live on the earth. I will give you the shape of the war eagle, and you shall be the chief of all birds, and your duty shall be to watch over their destinies." PG-33